I did send you guys all a link to a shared drive, so if you haven't already navigated there, you might want to do that while we wait. Okay, looks like we're live. Welcome to CSEA negotiations for the 2020-21 school year. Hard to believe we have to start this early, but we're going to have a little mini session here and to discuss at least one issue, maybe more if they come up, about the transition to remote learning as we begin the new school year. And so I think for the purpose of the audience, we should go around and introduce ourselves. I'll call on you since it's hard, we're not in a room, and knowing who's gonna go next. I'll start. My name is Mila Shepard. I serve the district as the Chief of Human Resources. And let's flip over to Mr. Williams.
Thank you. I'm Paul Williams, President of the Classified School Employees Association.
And Rob?
I'm Rob Keeney, Classified School Employee Association Vice President.
And I'm just going to call people as I see them on the screen. So the next one on the top row would be Christy.
Christy Riccio, outgoing HR Director.
Next one is Julie.
Julie Rodriguez from Legacy High School.
What's your position, Julie?
I represent the 12-month employees.
Cindy. Well, Cindy's talking. Let's go to Matt.
Matt Haviland, Principal, Woodglen Elementary.
And Cindy? Take yourself off of mute.
I'm Cindy Duma, and I'm the Senior Executive Assistant in HR.
All right, Nicole.
I'm Nicole Stone. I'm the incoming HR Director as of Monday.
Nice. Tony?
Tony Vasquez, Prairie Hills Base Director.
I'll give out a shout out to Chad Kessler, who's in the background from IT, helping us out this morning. Thanks so much, Chad. Lynn.
I'm Lynn Pritchard. I'm the office manager at Eagleview Elementary School.
Okay. And we're waiting for a couple more from the admin team. Igor Petrovich, Director of Transportation, and Lisa Salazar-Hart, Base Nutrition. I don't know her official title.
Base Director.
Base Director, thank you. So they'll join us as they can, and it's good to see you all. Sorry we're not in person, darn it, but here we are. We're going to talk, I think, to begin with, about one of the things that needs some attention, the topic of leave of absence. And Paul, before we just launch into that work, do you have anything you want to say?
Just want to say thanks to the district for collaborating with us and engaging in this conversation. We appreciate the work to be able to keep classified employees employed and working through this time and creating an avenue that allows that to happen. The other thing I want to say is just thanks to Christy for all the years of serving as the chief spokesperson for the district. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you spending your last day with us. But truly, we appreciate all the hard work you've done and contributed to the classified employees here at Adams12.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. I will miss you all.
Yeah, no doubt. I have to say, I have to echo Paul's words of appreciation for the partnership that the district and the CSEA share. It really is one of the best partnerships I've seen in the metro area and experienced personally. in 33 years of education. We really do, I think, work together very well to serve our students and our community. And we couldn't do that without the classified employees group. You guys are the backbone of this district and the service we offer to children. And so never more so than right now during this time of like huge upheaval and the need for flexibility, and this idea that we're asking people to step up into a role as a learning pod leader that none of us ever even heard of 2 weeks ago. And the willingness to just flex and to do something completely different and unique for kids is so amazing. I've been so just impressed and overwhelmed by the response of classified employees to the interest survey. We've had 1,166 responses as of this morning. The vast majority are like, yeah, count me in, I'll do it. I don't know what the heck I'm doing. You're gonna have to train me. You're gonna have to give me support, all of which we're going to do, but they're in it. So that's great. And I see Lisa Hart joining us, welcome. Thank you for being with us this morning. And so I think the main order of business that we noticed as we contemplated returning to a new school year under these circumstances was the wish of many people to have a leave of absence. And I will say that we have, as of this morning, I think you heard me mention 250 people, employees from both certified and classified and administrative groups in the HR queue, talking to us in an interactive process about a medical accommodation. That's a significant number of staff members. It's taking a while. That interactive process involves some emails back and forth. It involves an email to a doctor to get the doctor's opinion about the employee's ability to be at work. And then it involves some conversations, and it takes some time. And so you can imagine with 4 HR partners and 250 people, we've got more than 50 folders on every HR partner's desk. That's more than 50 people who have individual stories and really important decisions to make. And so we are working as hard as we can to get through those conversations and through those processes and to determine like what's the right level of risk and exposure for our employees to return to work with the help of their medical provider. And in some cases, you know, there's an accommodation that the employee feels like, yeah, that's good. I feel comfortable. I'm ready to go to work. But in some cases, the employee does not have a medical condition and they don't feel comfortable returning to work. Or they have a medical condition. It's not, the doctor is saying something maybe different than the employee feels comfortable with. And the employee just feels very much like, I'm not getting the accommodation I feel like I want. My doctor, you know, thinks I can go back, but I don't think I can go back. And so we have some of those cases too. So for a variety of reasons, we have people who just feel the need to take a leave of absence, an unpaid leave, and wait this out. And so I wonder if we can talk a little bit about what you're hearing around this idea of leave. And maybe before we look at a draft document and some ideas, just talk a little about the idea of a personal leave. We haven't had such a creature in this district, I think, for many years. And I think there are some concerns about granting personal leave. You know, it essentially it saves a spot for someone who's not here. And it doesn't allow us to hire a permanent replacement. And that's a big investment for a district to make, or any organization to make. And it's a bit of a hardship on the colleagues who get left behind. It's a bit of a hardship on the supervisor who has to hire a temporary replacement. And yet, you know, it's something that we're contemplating here today. And so I guess I'd like to hear from people about, like, what's your take on this whole idea of an unpaid leave? Is it a good thing? Is it a negative thing? Are you in support of it? Why? What stories are you hearing? Maybe we could just talk a little bit. Paul?
Yeah, I guess I'll start. So I think for us, or for me at least, what I've been hearing is just people want choice. They want the ability to, say, hey, maybe this COVID time is not the time for me to be at work, like you mentioned, for multiple different reasons. It could be medical, it could be a personal choice, it could be family, multiple different reasons. So I think choice is important for those folks to be able to say, hey, this time isn't for me, and I really want to kind of sit on the sidelines right now and wait this thing out. But I truly am dedicated to Adams12, and I want to come back when there's more certain times around what's going to happen. So I think for me, I think that's important for us to be able to provide that opportunity for folks to be able to take a leave of absence and then be able to return to their position when times are more solid and we have a better ground of what's going on in the medical field. So I think for me it's important.
This is a fairly small group size, and so if you would just unmute yourself and start talking. If we get too much chaos, I'll call on people, but I think we're small enough. Somebody else like to offer a point of view?
Yeah, so the biggest feedback that we're getting, especially on the nutrition services side, we're not struggling on the base side of the house with regards to people willing to step up and work in these learning pods, but we are on the nutrition services side. One, they're just uncomfortable being in a classroom with kids because that's not the type of work they've ever done. And so that's what they're expressing to us. And then two, a lot of them are just willing to quit if they don't have the option. So we've got some on hold right now who I'm like, no, don't resign yet. We don't know kind of where this is going to land. But I do know that we have about 5 to 10 staff who've already indicated that if it means they're going unpaid and they can't do an unpaid leave, meaning their job's going to be safe when they're ready to return and they feel it's safe, that they're just going to resign at this point. So that'll hurt us. And I don't think those are the only ones. I think we have quite a few out there who, push comes to shove, they'll just resign and walk away.
Rob, you're muted.
Hey, Rob, you're muted.
Okay, I'm sorry, let me try that again. So what I've been experiencing here at the CSEA office is a little bit of fear factor of the unknown initially. There was a little bit of heartache, feeling like there were some inequities upon who could stay home and who's now being asked to cover pods and whatnot. What I've seen is it's starting to calm down a little bit, and people are getting a little bit better comfort zone when they're starting to see some of the procedures and policies around how it's going to be handled in a safe manner. There is a population out there that they just don't feel comfortable. Plain and simple, they don't feel comfortable. And it seems like it's going to be a little bit more complicated for them to engage back into the workforce on a day-to-day basis. So that's what I've experienced.
I've been hearing that it's a challenge just with scheduling in terms of students that are maybe in a different district, just trying to manage the whole piece of their students at home, childcare issues, all of those factors that are still just, really weighing heavy on, say, a parent or an employee's mind, that they're saying, I don't know that this is the best year. Right now, I can't. I'm trying to do what's best for my students at home. And so I don't want to quit. What are my other options? We receive a lot of that from the accommodation space. Getting back to what Milo was talking about this morning or earlier today, was basically, what are my options? I don't have a medical condition. I don't have this, but I just don't feel like I can give 100% to work. And I think that's where it's difficult because the last thing from an employment standpoint that I would want to say is there's no options, because it's very, very difficult from one on the recruitment end to hire everyone back. But then I also have to talk about the other side. If we do have lots of leaves, I worry about that as well. So, I mean, it's definitely a two-pronged issue, because it's difficult to fill temporary assignments, absolutely. But I also recognize the fact that we don't want to lose the people that have dedicated their time, their effort, their support to Adams12. So it's I'm definitely on the fence because on both ends it means that we have staff members to hire in a difficult market. But I do think that we need some other options for employees, and I'm glad at least we're looking at it and talking about it, because this year is unprecedented. Something I would not recommend maybe going forward with it, but definitely this year it sounds like that's what a lot of the employees want.
Yeah, we've had some employees at the school level certainly inquire about options as well. And whether that's related to skill set and feeling comfortable, the amount of hours they feel like they would need to be out of home, the need to take care of young children, or trying to balance that out and feeling like in the unknown of the assignments. If I'm a special needs para, am I going to be able to continue in that role? Am I going to be expected to take a lead in a in-person learning pod? How do I manage my own kids at home? And even if my own kids go to a learning pod, which would be a benefit, and I think that's a very important step that the district has taken to help prioritize that option for school-age children. Often they have younger than school-age children that they're also trying to manage and balance with spouses or other caregivers. So I think we have had a lot of employees dedicate a lot of years, and we've invested a lot of training and support into those employees, being able to have them come back upon an in-person to return learning, or when again everybody feels safe to return, I think could be an important option to retain employees. I also do recognize the job market and being able to hire folks is particularly difficult at this time right now, and trying to find those people, get them hired and trained and up to speed in time for learning pods could prove challenging.
We're hearing a lot of the same. Employees just want to have a choice. They want to have an option because they're unsure due to their childcare, their young children. And this is across the board from different classified employees that have reached out asking for a better option, something different that is going to allow them to make the best choice for them and their families right now.
And I'm hearing ditto to what all of you are saying. It really doesn't matter whether they're in in a main office or playground people. Their concern is around their jobs and their safety, and also if they can't, what options do they have, especially as many of us are getting closer and closer to retirement, and they're like, so if I leave, I'm gone. I've messed up and lost all of those benefit of the hours at years at District 12. Also, the other concern that I've heard, and it's not about the leave of absence necessarily as the time that they work, some clarification on if I only work for student monitor 12 hours a week and they're extending my time, is that something that come January 1st, for example, it's going to automatically shrink right back down? Do I get benefits if I'm now benefited and stuff like that?
Yeah, those are good questions, and all territory that we haven't really, we're making this up as we go, every situation is kind of like new and we're responding to it. I would say generally speaking, just not on the subject of leave, but I think the intention certainly is if we can go back to like an in-person hybrid or in-person instruction at some point, maybe January, that people would revert to their old jobs, what they were scheduled to do originally. If the pandemic hadn't happened, they would revert. I believe is the plan and the intention right now. So, you could be a 12-hour-a-week person and then you jump up to 40 hours a week with learning pods, and you do that for the whole semester. And then we go away from the learning pod model back to sort of more business as usual, and you'd revert back to your 12-hour status. Now, there are some rules about benefits in the ACA. The Affordable Care Act does mandate that employers offer benefits when employees have worked 30 hours a week or more over a period of time. 90 days is a kind of a benchmark. So, it's possible if we're in this for the long haul and people are newly working greater than the 20 hours that we say is the benchmark for benefits, we may be looking at benefiting some employees that have never earned benefits before, if they're working in learning pods more than they normally would have. So that's something we'll have to cross as we get to those decisions about our instructional model and the needs in the system. But yeah, Lynn, it's possible things could change in that space. Okay, anybody else want to add anything to the conversation? So it's hard and it's weird on Zoom to kind of read the room, but I'm going to use a tool that we do in IBS, the thumbs up, the thumbs sideways, the thumbs down, if you don't mind, Paul, is that okay? Just to kind of, to see if we've got a willingness to move forward into some nitty gritty. I think verbally I'm hearing everybody say they're supportive of this idea. We should work on it. But I guess I want to hear from everybody. So the thumbs down is like, I can't live with this, and I've got a better idea. Thumbs sideways, I don't love it, but I could live with it. Thumbs up is I'm supportive. Let's go forward. So the question is, should we continue to work on an unpaid leave article here? Great. Okay. So with that, are you able to log into that shared drive that I sent you the link for this morning? So if you would, and we'll use this as we start CSEA negotiations, big time a little later this fall, but here's our folder, and it's titled CSEA negotiations. And the only thing in it right now is a document called personal leave. I see Lisa and Christy there. And I can share it on my screen. Just so our audience can see it.
I printed it off for my team, Lila.
Oh, okay, great. Are you, can you see that? Nicole, are you seeing the screen? Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so we took a stab at some language, not to be presumptuous, but just to give us something to start with. And so, Christy, maybe would you read us through the whole thing? And then I would suggest that maybe we just sort of attack it like paragraph by paragraph to talk about the issues in each paragraph. But would you mind just reading it out in case people don't have it?
Sure. Okay, so it is personal leave. It's a letter of agreement for personal leave. So it says for the 2020-2021 school year only, Due to the extenuating circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, classified employees may apply by August 17th, 2020 and/or November 17th, 2020. Classified employees engaged in the accommodations process through HR shall be granted a waiver of the deadline and be eligible to apply at the conclusion of their accommodations process. And that's just because going through the process, sometimes it's a little bit slower, a little bit faster than others. So, we've made concessions for that. Okay. So unpaid personal leave may be granted to classified employees with the following condition. Personal leave, if granted, shall be for up to 2 semesters within the 2020-2021 school year. So we don't know when this is going to end, so we've made it for the entire school year. Employees will not receive benefits while on an unpaid personal leave. So if someone elects to take an unpaid personal leave, they will not receive benefits. They can continue in the district group health insurance at their own expense through COBRA. Employees will not be permitted to use their accrued temporary time in conjunction with the personal leave. The district is not obligated to approve any request for the employee to return to work following the unpaid leave if no position is available. So do we want to go through those one by one?
Yeah, I think so. And we can just talk about sort of the pros and the cons. And like I said, this is not any kind of this is how it has to be, but it's a place to start. And I think I'll start with the whole subject of the due dates. And I'm already sort of thinking about that August 17th. And here's why. We set August 17th to be the deadline in the certified process because of a payroll issue. So certified teachers or certified employees are getting their first paycheck of the new contract year. And you know that their paychecks are prorated across 12 months and they get the 1/12 of their pay at the end of August. And the payroll cutoff is like August 15th. And so if we don't have, if a certified employees on August 20th says, oh, I want to take unpaid leave, they're already in the hopper to get a paycheck. And it's possible that they wouldn't show up for a single day of work and get a paycheck and be out on an unpaid leave. And we really would have no way to recoup, to go get the money back from them. You could ask for it and hopefully most people would pay it back, but it's not really a sound fiscal arrangement to pay out money that you don't have any way to recoup. And so for certified, we set that August 17th date. That gives us just a little window of time for people to go ahead and apply. And it allows us to pull back their first paycheck so that they don't mistakenly get paid and have to repay. That's not good for the employee either. Certified group, though, I don't think has the same payroll issue. And so I want to think out loud with you about that and have you correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like 9-month employees are just starting up on August 19th. And so their first paycheck isn't going to come until September. Am I correct on that? And so I think that we might have a little more time to, we don't have the same issue of a paycheck that has to be repaid for a 9-month employee. Now for 10, 11, and 12-month employees, they've already been working. They're probably going to get a paycheck for work done appropriately. So I think we could perhaps look at a different due date.
The other piece too, Mila, on there, one concern that I have there is, let's say that we have, and I'm saying this because we have a lot of people going into a role that they've never seen before, right? So we have school drivers, bus drivers, or bus paras that are now going to be with kids a longer period of time than they ever were on their bus. So I'm just concerned about what if we have somebody who gets in one of these pods, they gave it a good try. 2 weeks into it, they're like, whoa, I just can't get a grasp of this. I can't, I mean, this isn't my work. I just don't feel comfortable even with all the support and those types of things. Does that then prevent that person from coming back and saying, hey, I gave it a good try, but I just, I really feel like that this isn't for me, and I need to take an unpaid leave of absence to wait until we're back to in-person learning and I'm back to driving a bus or doing, base work, whatever.
I think that's a good point. I would love to hear some other points of view on the whole matter of a cutoff date for first semester.
I think if we don't have a cutoff date, then, people, I think Paul's right. People are going to get into it, for 3 days or something and say, I can't do this. And then we're going to have issues with staffing. So that's the issue there. If, people need to make up their minds if they're going to do it or not do it. I appreciate what you're saying, Paul, but, if you make the commitment to come back to work, then, it's going to be difficult if you opt out a few days in or a weekend.
I completely agree with that, because what we're doing is we're building the number of pods that are available based on the staff that we have. And know that there's going to be some people that resign or, cannot fulfill that. But if we have an open-ended date, it will be a real challenge, especially in the learning pod environment, and any position that we have to adequately fill that position. So I definitely am in favor of a due date. Does it have to be August 17th? Not sure about that, but I think there needs to be some kind of deadline.
I think there should be some kind of deadline. I think what we need to decide is what's the appropriate deadline. There should be an August or early September deadline. But how, to Paul's point, can we make it like well, here's another fact. How do we want to consider this? We know that by September 11th, the district will make a decision about the rest of the semester. And so should that come into play? Should we say that the due date would be, what are the pros and cons of saying that the due date would be September 11th? And you hear what the district's plans are, or maybe by Monday the 14th, I don't know. And you hear what they are, and and at that point you have one chance to make a decision, and you're in or you're out. If the model is we're in learning pods for the whole semester, and we've got the example that Paul gives where somebody's just like, I just can't see it. I need to be out of this. I think that's a real hardship on our system, to lose people at that point. But I don't know, if somebody's deeply unhappy, they might just walk. Lisa, I wonder what you guys think.
That's what I was just going to say. So from a base perspective, and Tony, back me up or tell me I'm wrong, but there are a lot of people who think they can work with kids, and then they get into a room and they're like, I can't work with kids. And that happens a lot. And I think a lot of these people that we're asking to step into classrooms, are going to struggle. I have seen it firsthand. And so I think if we don't give at least one more opportunity for someone to say, let me go on an unpaid, they're just going to walk. And that's going to hurt on the nutrition services side. That will hurt us. We don't have nearly as many people as Igor's group volunteering to go into these learning pods as we do in nutrition. But especially the people that are with us for the first 3, 4, 5 years, that we've invested in for the last 5 years. If we put them in a situation where they're super uncomfortable and they're like, I just cannot do this, their only option is going to be to resign. And so I think if we could build something in that gives them one more option to say, you know what, I tried it out. This does not work for me. I am super uncomfortable. Because the other piece of that is I also don't want, as I'm looking through the staffing and Nicole and I are working on it, my concern comes more from we're putting people who aren't used to working with kids. And I don't want people who are going to be mean to kids in these classrooms. And if it's a high stress environment, they're not feeling good about it, I would rather them just say, hey, let me go unpaid rather than quit, because they may be great employees in their other role, as opposed to your only option is to quit, or for me to keep you in a very unhappy place where now you may be taking it out on those kids. And it creates additional issues for us as well, because we've also seen that piece where employees, sometimes are not too kind to children, which is really unfortunate. And that's what I don't want to have happen.
So I agree with those points. The other point, I think that September 11th might give us, if we do that, I think that might be a great idea. The other piece of that I think that might give us is if, somebody made the decision that, hey, I want to go on a paid leave of absence right now, or an unpaid leave of absence, and then all of a sudden we get to September 11th in the district. Because I think there's some people who say, hey, if this is only till September 24th, I can go and afford to be on an unpaid till that point in time. But if this is a long-term thing till semester, or even now into the second semester into spring, I wonder if those folks would still make that same decision. So we might get more people by that September 11th who say, hey, I've heard from people working in the pods, it's not such a bad deal. It actually works out pretty good. And you know what, I'd be willing to jump into a pod at this point if we had pods available at that point in time. But I think that might give us some more folks who might jump in at that point too.
Paul, I'm not sure if I heard you correctly. Are you suggesting that people might come back early from a leave of absence? I think one of the things we're contemplating here is that if you apply for the leave, it's a semester. And that's one of the decision points for us. But that from a staffing point of view, from a hiring point of view, it's really hard to hire somebody for shorter periods of time. And there's a lot of upheaval with people coming and going. And so I think along the theme of make a decision, what I would advocate is that a leave be a semester long. And so you might make a decision and the game changes September 11th or at the end of September, and you might say, oh, I wish I wouldn't have made that decision. But I guess that's where my advocacy would be. Let's make the leaves a semester at a time. So you're not locked out for a whole year if you change your mind. But in order to let the system replace you and hire somebody and attract somebody to come do the work, we might need to consider at least a semester. I'm curious about other points of view on that.
So my only other thing on that would be, I don't want to make a decision that could backfire on us either. What if we could say the position would be unavailable, or what if we said that the leave would be for a semester unless you wanted to come back and the position was available? What if we said that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hate to cut off our noses to spite our faces and be like, nope, you said you were on leave and, we're desperate. We don't have enough people, but, you're on leave. Yeah. What do the rest of you think about that?
My only concern with that is there is a lot of training that is taking place in the next 2 weeks for staff who don't normally work with kids. So coordinating that to me would be difficult. I mean, I think if it's someone who normally works with children, like I'm a kindergarten parent, I'm normally helping to supervise students and doing some of those things. But if we're talking a bus driver, I just don't know what that would look like in terms of adequately supporting them to be able to be in a learning pod independently.
What if we recorded the training and then they were able to participate in a recorded training, at a later date? I don't know. I mean, if that's feasible, but maybe.
Don't you think for the most part, I think people are going to want to protect their paycheck. And I think Paul's right. We don't know what we don't know as far as, are they going to have a comfort level doing this? Could there be a small percentage of people freaking out? I think giving it a window to have some type of a soft opting out period, even though it would be a little bit complicated on staffing issues, it might be the right thing to do.
I know I recognize there's a lot of unknowns with this and how, this is going to pan out, how employers are going to feel, particularly those who haven't worked in a student supervisory setting before. But I do look at these deadlines of August 19th being the report date, the 24th being when the training begins, like Lisa referred to, and then the start of the learning pods on the 31st. And I think I just want to make sure that we're able as a district to follow through on our commitment to students and families, because I imagine these are our most at-risk students who are going to be needing to attend these learning pods. They don't have access to Wi-Fi. They don't have parents who are working and may be, in essential worker type categories, and they're really counting on us to be able to follow through. And if we're following the guidelines of 10 to 12 students, per learning pod, I just want to make sure that we're able to adequately staff and follow through on that commitment. I know parents will be counting on us. Our own staff members are going to be counting on us. And so I think I have a slight concern of, if we have staff who start and then quit, and I know that may happen and that may just be part of the process, but if we create a system where that's allowed to happen on a grand scale, I want to make sure people have the opportunity to come back to the district, continue their employment, have that option. I just think the more knowns we have, the more adequately we're able to plan and follow through and deliver on our commitments.
I absolutely agree with you, Matt. I have a question for, for the team, anybody who has an opinion about this. Do you feel like a person who's ready to take an unpaid leave of absence would also be ready to just quit? I don't want to encourage people to leave, which is the point I think Matt is saying. I don't want to set up a construct that's like, oh, that's attractive, I'm out of here, I don't want to set that up. I don't want people to leave. We need all the staff we have. But I wonder if the people who are contemplating an unpaid leave, that's a pretty serious step to take. Not very many people, frankly, can afford that. So if you're someone who's thinking about that, are you also just as likely to just quit? Or is the unpaid leave and it kind of an enticement? Is it somehow a better thing?
I think it depends on how many years you have in the system. I think if you're a longer term employee, I think you're probably your seniority is valuable to you. The benefits of long-term employment probably are a benefit. If you're somebody who's been here maybe a year, 2 or 3, then and you're not entitled to any of those benefits and you're not high up on the seniority list, then probably, quitting isn't, taking a leave of absence isn't that much of a benefit over quitting, I guess. But I think if you're a long-term person, you're walking away from, potentially a long career.
Do you think, Paul, that what we're going to see doing these pods are going to be more of the senior people?
I think it's a mixture. I think Lisa, Eli, and Nicole, I think have probably seen the list the most out of everybody here, but I think it's a good mixture of folks. I think we have some people who are pretty new into the system that have signed up, and I think we have a lot of folks who have been here for a while that are signed up for the pods. So I think it's just a mixture. My response was just mainly to Mila about is somebody likely to quit versus wanting this leave, and I think probably the person who has a lot of years would be more apt to want that leave. I think that would be important to them.
So we have in the last 3 days have seen 4 assistant managers quit, which those are our higher level people, which is a struggle to replace. And I know we have another 2 sitting on the list who are kind of just waiting to see if they can go into an unpaid leave. And if they can't, then their plan is just to quit, because these are the people that take on this position while their kids are at school and they're not interested in the learning pods. So it's not that they need to work, but they do it because it gives them something to do while their kids are at work. Plus it's nice to have the paycheck, but they don't need the paycheck. And that's from the nutrition services side where we struggle, because typically the people that we're employing are parents of students within our district, and the whole learning pod thing, for some of them works, for some of them it doesn't. But we were hit pretty hard this week on the nutrition services side, both in cook cashiers and assistant managers.
And do you feel like a due date for an unpaid leave policy would shift that one way or the other, or that's just going to happen? That's just the dynamic of your group.
I think the ones who are willing to go into that unpaid status are willing to do it regardless of what the date is or the duration. I think if they choose it, that's just where they're going to sit, and they're going to stay in that unpaid leave until we come back. On the flip side, though, the ones who are staying with us, yeah, no, I don't think they're going to come back. I don't think the people on the nutrition services side who've indicated that they want this unpaid leave, I don't think midway through they're going to be like, nope, I've changed my mind, bring me back to work. I think they'll stay out. I'm not sure if that's what you were asking.
I think people some people that take the unpaid leave, they're probably going to look for another job, because how many of us can go without pay? And then, we're certainly not assured that they'll come back. So.
And that is true. There is no guarantee that they are going to come back. I just know that in our world, the nutrition services world specifically, those people are okay going unpaid because they were stay-at-home moms for the most part anyway. And so for them, this is kind of just going back to what they were used to, and then they're willing to return when they're ready.
And I know we don't have enough information about learning pods in front of us right now. And maybe you do, Mila, about number of students enrolled, what our staffing looks like, and our ability to pivot and shift with that. Because I know, for example, if we have special needs students attending learning pods, the likelihood of them receiving similar support, like we would provide in a base program or an SSN type setting, may need to continue for those students. Do we have any idea about what our staffing levels may be looking like? Because, again, I don't know if we want to get into the position of, hey, we started this learning pod, here's your teacher or your learning pod leader, and here's how that person is going to be interacting with you. You're building the relationship, and having that turnover for kids is often difficult. We know that with base, we know that with classroom teachers. But if they were to get into the training and start seeing, gosh, this just isn't for me, is that an appropriate time? Once they learn a little more, see a little more what it looks like, where we still have time to pivot and staff. We have some flexibility with that, or we just staff to the max, and we'd be hurting and trying to fill positions by the 31st in a hurry. That would be a hardship.
Nicole or Lisa, do you want to talk a little bit about current staffing levels?
So we're actively working on that right now. I can tell you pretty much every location we're short in staff. On the declined list, we have about 100 staff who declined the learning pod option. And I don't know if these are the same people that have also contacted HR about the leave. I did notice that on some of the people that responded to the survey yesterday, a second time, they're starting to change their mind. So I'm going into that declined list and crossing them off, and then changing their status on the ones who are willing to work. But yeah, we are deficient right now, but I won't know until the end of, in a couple of hours, once we've had a chance to move all the data into the spreadsheet to see really how deficient we're going to be.
I think the question becomes, when do we, do you ask people to make a decision about a leave of absence sight unseen, before they ever go to any learning pod training? Do you ask them to make a decision, to your point, Matt, like at the end of the learning pod training week, if they're just like, well, I don't think so, not for me. But then you're left last minute with a too fast a pivot. Do you leave the door open until the district announces its new plan, September 11th, and let people get into it, let people try it? I think people always have the option to walk. If someone's deeply unhappy and the learning pod is not for them, they walk. But they leave a lot behind, to Paul's point, especially if they have any level of seniority in the district, they sacrifice for that choice. The question is, how much as a district do we want to allow people to walk away from a learning pod? And at what point do we say, you got to have made your choice, we need you in or we need you out? I think that's hard to ask people to do when they haven't even seen anything about the learning pod, the training. I'm really struggling because on the organizational side of it, we need every staff member we can get. We need you to commit and we need you to show up. We're going to train you. We're going to invest in you. We're going to support you, and we need you in it. And so I don't want to encourage us to not, just really have people in it and working with our students. But on the other hand, we know that unhappy people do not serve students well. And so I do think there probably needs to be some room for people to get a taste of it and then be able to make an informed decision, as hard as that is on the district. I don't know. I'd love to hear from other supervisors, but that's what I'm struggling with.
So it sounds like September 11th is a good date.
I'd love to hear from Igor, and I'm sorry that he's not here right now. I wonder if we kind of shelve this date and we go on and talk about some of the other issues around the leave, and then we can come back to the date. Does that seem okay? Okay. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen again. Sorry, I realized. Thank you, Cindy, for alerting me that I was inadvertently sharing a screen that I didn't mean to be sharing, like my email inbox. Let's see here if I can. Are you seeing the letter of agreement again? All right. I guess while we're still on this paragraph, we're going to take forever on this paragraph. The second question has to do with a secondary timeline. In the certified conversation, we talked about, giving people a chance to wait and see what happens that semester. And we set the date as November 17th because that gives supervisors a chance to post and hire for second semester. Given that there's a Thanksgiving week in there, that we end school on December 17th, that's really not quite a month of business days, but it is a month of calendar days if you're going to post positions and try to hire up for second semester. And so from an organizational point of view, we also talked about really trying to be clear about what the organizational model is likely to be. And that's kind of early, November is a full 6 weeks before second semester starts, but in as much as we could, we committed to saying, listen, we're going to be trying to know and to publicize what the instructional model is as far as we can at that time. So people know, okay, I put up with this, I did this for first semester, but if it's going to go on all year long, I'd like to have a second semester leave of absence. So that was the thinking behind a second entry point to allow for applications for second semester early enough so that replacement hiring could be done. Any thoughts about the November 17th, the idea of a second deadline and that particular date?
So I think second semester deadline is good. I have less concern around that than I do this initial one, just because I think at that point in time, I think things are more clear, hopefully, as we walk through and we kind of know how these pods have been going and that type of thing. And so I think there's less unknown at that point. So that date, I have less concern about, and I kind of see the district's point around wanting to have some planning and that type of thing gearing up for the second semester. And we'll be engaged at that point in time too. So less opportunity to do some of those things for supervisors.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Paul. I think there'll be a comfort level of what they're doing, and if they're okay with doing the pods, which I would think that if you're comfortable doing pods, you're going to go ahead and continue on. There's going to be a small group, that could back out, but for the most part, I think they would continue on to the next semester. So 17th sounds good to me.
Others? Matt, you're okay with that? Lisa, Nicole? Okay, all right. Okay, good. Let's move on to that first bullet. So we've been talking about granting it for up to 2 semesters within the 2020-21 school year. So allowing people to take a semester, you could possibly take the whole year off. Any conversation about that? Any concerns? It's only this year. We'd have to come back and revisit it if we were going to extend this into a new year.
Yeah, I agree.
It seems like kind of a given that we've been sort of assuming that this would be what it is, but that spells it out. You okay with that
Yep.
wording? So let me just gauge your support of this with thumbs. Are you supportive of that first bullet? Okay, great. The second bullet, this is pretty standard practice. Employees don't receive benefits when they're on an unpaid personal leave. Any conversation about that?
No, that's what we do for any type of leave out there. As soon as you go into unpaid, the benefits no longer come with it. So that's standard.
Okay. And 2 and 3 really kind of go together. 3 just talks about how you could continue in the district benefits plan if you wanted, and that's through COBRA. And I remember last year during our negotiations, we had a little conversation about this idea that when you're on unpaid leave, you do continue through this COBRA, and we spell out what that stands for there in the article. That language is the exact same thing. We lifted it out of Article 15.7. So it's just a repeat, to be clear.
Yeah, and for those listening in who might not be aware, this is just in place of the old policy or old process of us just cash paying the district. It now goes through the vendor for folks to pay those benefits. Yeah,
and to be very clear, COBRA means that you pay 100% of the premium costs. So you pay, $500, $600, $1,000, whatever your benefits package is right now, plus 2%. That's a service charge that the company who runs COBRA for us charges. That's very typical in all industries, not just us. And that it's an option. You don't have to do it. But it's an option to stay with your current insurer and your current insurance. So, okay. So let's see some thumbs on that. Is that acceptable language, acceptable concept? Great. Tony, is your thumb low? I just don't see it on the camera. Okay. All right. Fourth bullet. Employees not permitted to use their accrued temp time in conjunction with the personal leave. And so, Christy, do you want to talk a little bit about just some of the facts around that, the story around that? What's in place currently, and what's our thinking on this line?
Sure. Well, one of the things is that if we would allow people to use temporary leave, either at the beginning or at some point during the unpaid leave, then when they come back, they're not going to have any. And, that always presents a problem because we already deal with quite a few classified employees that get into a without pay status. So, we want them to be able to have time when they come back, have time accrued when they come back. And also, we would be paying it at 100%, whereas if they left, they would get it at a percentage. So it would be a greater expense to the district.
And our current practice, when somebody resigns, for example, they intend to separate from the district, we do not allow them to use their temporary leave. You know, like if you have
Correct.
2 weeks worth of temp leave, I can't make my last 2 weeks at work be 100% pay because I'm using temp leave and then just walk off into the sunset and resign. Is that right?
Right, right.
So you actually have to be here physically on your last day worked.
Correct.
And that is to prevent that sort of thing from happening. And then we pay you your temp leave at a percentage of its value in a lump
Right.
sum after you resign. Okay.
And we may also want to address vacation also, because some classified do receive vacation.
Yep. I'll add the word or vacation.
Okay.
So let's hear some thoughts about that. And the words in conjunction with, I think was intended to say either right before the leave or right after the leave to extend it, or sometime, I don't know how you'd use it in the middle of the leave, but anyway, just not connected to the unpaid leave is the intention of that bullet as it's written. Love to hear your thoughts about that.
Well, I think some people, like if some people had a vacation planned or something like that, if they had time planned and they took the temp leave, you know, we're not going to permit use of temporary time throughout.
Say that again.
So let's say that they had time off planned, they had scheduled time off, and then, you know, the unpaid leave started. You know, so let's say the unpaid leave starts, you know, September 1st, and they had they had days off planned on, you know, in November. I mean, we're not going to go in and out, you know, it's like,
right.
You can't use that time. You can't use your temp or vacation anytime during the unpaid leave.
Gotcha. Thank you.
So I can see both sides here. You have, you know, I think you'd have some on one side of the argument saying, you know, hey, it's my accrued leave. I should be able to use it to walk through this process. I'm not separating employment. Typically, currently, we do have employees use their temp leave before they can go into an unpaid status. That's our current practice. We get a lot of pushback on that from employees who say, you know, I want to go into an unpaid status and you're forcing me to burn my time to take me out of the qualifications for sick leave bank and those types of things, or to have it if something else comes up, some other type of leave. So the one thing that does give me heartburn though, a little bit here is the vacation piece of it. And I don't really feel like that has any hardship to the district, just because if you're leaving from the district, your vacation's paid at 100% anyway. So whether we pay it at this period of time or pay it at the end of the leave, it's 100%. So
is there a limit though, Paul, how much they can sell when they leave? It's all okay.
Yeah, any vacation time. Now they classified is only allowed to carry 1 year's worth of time.
Sure.
So at the end of the year, then they would just be cashed out at that point anyways.
Right.
So regardless, vacation's always paid out at 100%. So for that piece of it, it's to me, it's like, let them take the vacation if they want. I'm open for discussion on this temporary leave thing, because I can kind of see that both ways. One thing is you know, during this period of time, do we really want to force people to burn up their temp leave going out? I can see that side of the argument. So, and I kind of lean towards that side of the argument around, you know, forcing somebody to go out and take this unpaid leave, no fault of their own. And then now all of a sudden they come back and they've got no temp leave. Something happens, they, you know, go out on maternity leave or something like that. No, they got nothing to qualify them to get over to the sick leave bank. So, so I kind of lean in that direction on the temp leave, but on the vacation side, I think we should allow them to use their vacation because they would anyways.
Yeah, that makes
sense. I kind of agree with Paul. I think the temp leaves, I think you're in alignment with that, because a lot of these folks are going to come back. We don't want them to be coming back with zero temp leave on their paychecks. So we're kind of helping them and protecting them moving forward. The vacation time, I think we need to leave just well enough alone. And Paul's right, if they want to collect it, and Christy, to your point, let's say they did have a vacation plan, and now all of a sudden we're throwing this unpaid leave language at them to no fault of their own. And Paul, again, he's right on the second point, pay me now, pay me later, it's still at the same rate.
Well, the only thing is though, I mean, I understand what you're saying about vacation time, and then that would be at 100% when they leave, right? The only thing is, I think it's going to be confusing if they go in and out.
Yeah.
If they're going to use it, they probably need to use it at the beginning
So
for vacation.
I would agree with that just because of the PeopleSoft
I
and
wouldn't have a problem with that.
Oh,
yeah, the technical side, it would be difficult for them to use it throughout because it then goes into accruals in those spaces. So I think that it's like you're either paid or you're not paid. And to go in and out is difficult from a systems space. So yeah.
It's going to be difficult also because when you're on unpaid leave, you're not accruing time. And then when you're on vacation time, you are. So that's going to be a nightmare for payroll.
so I think not, I don't hear Paul saying in and out of paid and unpaid. But I
Okay.
hear him saying, let's just not mention vacation time here.
Okay. Okay.
I
Other
agree.
thoughts?
But people are going to ask though.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and I think for us to just have an understanding that if you're going to use vacation time, it's at the beginning and it goes, but you can't go in and out. I agree with that
Right.
piece of
Okay.
it. You're
Okay.
either in or you're out.
Yeah.
The leave is a period of time. It is not interrupted. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't disagree. This is a financial sort of thing, and it's also consistent with other practice, in other places. Like, we don't allow you to just use up all sorts of time so that your end date is later. You have to be physically present on your last day. And so trying to just maintain some consistency with that practice. I wonder what other supervisors think. Or Christy, back to you.
I mean, I think it's okay if it's at the beginning, so
Yeah.
I think that would be okay. And some
Okay.
people, not very many classified get vacation, and some of the ones that do have an awful lot. So, I mean, we pay it now, we pay it later. So,
Okay.
So Miley, I heard you say if they're on an unpaid status, they don't accrue temporary leave. Is there anybody who accrues vacation leave while being on an unpaid status? I just am not sure how that works. I don't believe that's true, but
they don't get benefits.
they don't get
And-
benefits.
And
Got it.
temp and vacation are benefits.
Yeah, good question.
But you're right, Christy, we're only really talking about 12-month employees anyway on this vacation time.
Right.
So I think the proposal would be, I've got the highlighted phrase, let's just eliminate the mention of vacation. Is that right? And have it just say, employees will not be permitted to use their accrued temp time in conjunction with the personal leave. Are there other thoughts that are out there about that? We've kind of been talking both sides of that issue, but I think we seem to be leaning on the idea that people are going to need their temp time upon return, perhaps, and to be eligible for sick leave bank future use. They shouldn't be allowed to be paid 100% when I think we have to say it's quite possible if somebody goes out on an unpaid leave that they're going to find a different job while they're gone, and then that really is their de facto resignation. And treating that situation differently than we treat resignation situations wouldn't really be very fair.
Well, it feels to me like it's a protection for the employee too, upon their return from leave. Should a family member or other things be in need of support, or again, the maternity leaves and being able to access sick leave bank, it feels like a nice protection piece for the employees.
Other voices, other opinions?
I totally agree with that though, Matt. I think that we're kind of protecting the employee should they return, which I err on the side of positive, and I think a lot of them will return. And then you kind of, on the district side, you know, again, if they do resign, then Christy's right, we're paying them out at that 60% as opposed to 100%.
Yeah.
Well, and for us, it'll just prevent a lot of people coming in and out wanting to use temp leave and not use temp leave. And we just have so many employees that we have to do payroll for. So it makes it really difficult when you have people like, oh, I didn't use any temp leave, but this week or this pay period, I want to use 2 days. And next week, I'm going to use 1 day. And it just becomes a nightmare for us.
Right.
So if we can just say, no, I'm good with that.
Any other opinions?
I got one question real quick. So, you know, a lot of these employees have been off since March. So they've been accruing temp time this whole time, and yet not utilizing it. Like, say your people, correct, Lisa? Or, you know, people in
My peeps have been working. Our peeps have been working.
Yeah.
Since March.
So they're still accruing temp time then. I guess a lot of them would be still then. I mean,
Yeah.
not utilizing temp time, utilizing it.
Yeah, no, we don't have a whole lot of them utilizing it, but a majority of our people have been, they've been working this whole time. So,
yeah.
But like, say, Lynn, you know, your position, you've been accruing temp time, but not necessarily needing to utilize it, correct?
Well, I worked remotely the majority of the time. And so I worked my full school year, but Rob, I don't normally use temp time. So, but I think the idea.
So I guess what I'm saying is there's a population out there that's been accruing temp time this whole time, who still could go to unpaid status, who's going to have, you know, maybe some pretty good accrual numbers, give or take, because they haven't been utilizing them. There's a population out there that bus drivers and so on and so forth.
Well, those, as long as they've still been being paid. So most of the people that I believe we're talking about, the most of the 9-month employees, they ended their school year on the 22nd of May. So they haven't really worked since then. So they haven't accrued time or pay.
Right.
So, yeah, they did, you're right. They did accrue time from March, April, and May based on the hours that they got paid for. So maybe a day and a half or 2 days that they do have available that they may not have had they been working, because they probably would have used it for Rocky's days. But I like the idea, I like the idea of saying you can't use the temp time. Like, I agree with Paul. I think that the vacation time is questionable. If you use it up front, to me, that's a good compromise. But I'm all for not letting them use the temp time on leave.
Yeah. Okay. Any last comments before we call this question? What do you, are you okay with the fourth bullet as it appears right now? Employees will not be permitted to use their accrued temp time in conjunction with personal leave. We see your thumbs. Great. Okay.
What if we said, hold on the, what if we said?
Nope, it's done.
I didn't give you a thumb.
Don't give me a finger either.
Right. So what if we said accrued temporary time in conjunction with the unpaid personal leave? Because somebody could right now still go on maternity leave. We're still going to have those leaves.
Yeah.
But the unpaid COVID leave, we're good with the temp time.
I think I'll capitalize personal leave to really show that this one specific kind of leave, but the word unpaid is not a problem to add.
Perfect.
So, good clarification. All right. I'll accept your.
Now I'll give you a thumbs up.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. Last bullet. The district is not obligated to approve any requests for the employee to return to work following the unpaid leave if no position is available. This is super draft language trying to get at the, what's going to happen when the leave is over issue. And, this is our first thought at how to phrase that. But I think to use an example of let's say that an employee takes an unpaid leave, a personal leave this semester, and they're a bus assistant. And, you know, at semester, they're like, I got to get back to work. I've got to start earning some money again. And they want to come back. And we're all booked up. We're fine on learning pods. We're still remote. We don't need bus assistance. And so do we have to make up a job for a person to return from this leave if nothing exists?
So we're only
trying to get around that idea. Oh, Christy,
we're only talking, go ahead.
Oh, wait, go ahead, Paul.
We're only talking if we're still in this remote setting, right? So if we're back to in-person learning, then I think the message we've been kind of telling folks is that, you know, we would give you your, you know, now we're back from remote learning, we're in-person learning again. Now your, you know, bus aid position is, you know, learning pods are over, bus aides are running bus routes again. At that point in time, then I would say that the district would return those folks back from leave, right?
Christy, you want to talk to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that is what we're saying. This sort of kind of exists already in the master agreement. If you look under Article 15.5, it says that neither the supervisor nor the chief human resource officer is obligated to approve any request for the employee to return to his or her position following unpaid leave of absence in excess of 12 weeks. So I think we've always returned people to their position because it's always been available. But I think here we're just saying that, you know, if their position is not available, we're not going to create a new one.
And I'm okay with that if we're under remote learning. You know, if we're still under this remote option and we're running the learning pods and that type of thing, I'm okay there. Saying that, hey, we're full. We gave you the option to jump on this model and you chose not to, or you couldn't at that point, and now we don't have anything. But if we return from, you know, from this remote model and now we're back to in person, then I think we do give the people the opportunity to come back at that point. You know, because a lot of times, or for a lot of folks, this is outside of their normal, you know, their normal day-to-day roles. So.
I think I have some wonderings around what that return and what our staffing levels and enrollment levels could potentially look like, particularly if it's in January or something like that. And we say we're returning to learning, and then we have a large percentage of our students, and I'm thinking maybe of our SSN students or our highly impacted students whose families say, we're going to continue on with the online option. We're not sending our kid back to school. Are we going to be creating positions for people where we don't have staffing needs? And or, you know, what will that look like even in, you know, let's say next school year, you know, let's pretend everything's back to normal and we're trying to come back, but our enrollment has declined or we don't have the staffing needs that we would have. Again, I anticipate we do, but if something were to change and we don't need as many bus routes or we don't need as many SSN type supports, what are we thinking in those situations?
So I agree with you on those, Matt, that we wouldn't want to create a position or create a situation where we're like, hey, you know, due to student enrollment, but I would think we would follow our seniority-based RIF process at that point to say, you know, hey, you know, so follow me. So if we have number one senior person at a school who's our number one classroom para, number one senior classroom para, who this pod thing just wasn't for them, or they had a situation out at their house or home or home life, and now we're back to in-person learning, then I would think we would follow whatever our normal RIF process was there. You know, if indeed our numbers dropped and we have to, you know, go through the normal RIF process, then that person, there might not be a position for that person, right? Because just enrollment's down, and that's the normal nature of the business. Same thing in our, say, the busing area. If you've got, you know, a bus driver who's pretty low on the seniority list, and we just don't have as many routes due to enrollment or changes in busing, then but you would still follow the bid process. You know, and that person would either get a route according to their seniority or not get a route according to their seniority. So I would think we would just follow whatever our normal, practice is and put those people back according to that process. But you're right. I wouldn't force the district to say, hey, we don't have the enrollment, but we still want to place people in positions that don't exist. I agree with that.
Normally, in other types of leave, if somebody's been out on an unpaid leave and they're coming back to a reduced enrollment scenario, do we normally kick into the Article 9 RIF process?
Yeah, we would. It would just fall into whatever. So if, like, say, an office manager, first of all, well, office manager is not a good example because you would only hire a temporary at that point until the person's ready to return. But in a situation where we've had multiple people in a position, you would just place that one back, and then maybe if you had a paraeducator or something, then you might possibly move that paraeducator that you brought in on a temporary basis into another work location. So if the work existed.
And do we typically have that flexibility and ability to RIF mid-year?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's everything's with a 30-day notice. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
What this would mean is that we would fill the replacement positions with temporaries. And so that's where it's important to do that, because if we're saying that any of these types of leaves, they have a protected leave and a protected place to go back to, then the replacements are temporary assignments, that we notify the person that has secured the temporary assignment that the position is ended. The person that was on an approved leave of absence would then therefore resume his or her position. If there is a surplus at that point of staff, then what I'm hearing, Paul, you're recommending is then we follow the RIF process in terms of how to make the staffing correct and staffing numbers right based on seniority, job classifications. Is that what I'm hearing you're saying?
Correct. Yep.
So possibly adding a sentence to the bullet that says something about following the terms of Article 9.9. What do you think of that, Christy?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I guess I'm a little concerned about the 30-day notice,
Mm-hmm.
Is that gonna, are we gonna?
I would hope that we would know before the end of semester, like what our enrollment's looking like, right? So if we're coming back at the end of semester and we're like, man, we're full on all these positions, then I would hope we would know that coming into semester. And then we could start that conversation at that point. It's typically kind of what we do. We don't have a whole lot of mid-year reductions in the classified arena.
Right.
A lot of times, Nicole, I'm looking at you to correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the times we've had those situations pop up and we've possibly moved some people around and said, hey, we can use some help over here at this school, and we might do like a 2-week notice or a 1-week notice if the employee says, I need to make some arrangements around transportation or stuff like that. Then we've moved them around, but for the most part, we typically don't have mid-year reductions like that. We try to avoid them, I guess.
That's correct, Paul. What we do is we follow the protocol and the process, but rather than having the position end or the person end their employment with us through reduction, we follow the protocol, the process, the outline, and then we offer them a different position in a different school, because most of the time we have openings for which we can slot them into. Most of the time.
Do we need to put a deadline for notification, your intent to return from leave? If we're gonna assure like a 30-day notice compliant with Article 9.9,
Yeah.
then we need to be really clear that you're gonna have to declare your intent to return or not return in time for us to give that notice.
Mhm.
So in 15.9, Milo, we do have a sentence there that talks about employees who are out on leave need to notify the district 10 days in writing prior to. So we have something there, but for purposes of this letter of agreement, we could make a sentence in there as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, should we just do it the same as it is here? It says that they have to respond in writing 10 working days prior to the conclusion of the leave. Is that what you're proposing?
Mhm.
I think that's a good idea.
I just wonder if 10 days is enough.
Can I ask just one question?
Yeah.
Will people be still accruing seniority if they're on an unpaid leave, or will that go by the wayside?
Good question.
So they're always restored. They're always restored in full. So seniority in place, made
To
whole
where they
again.
left off, right,
Uh-huh.
Paul? They're not
No.
accruing another year during the year that they're gone, but
They
they
do.
just come back to where they left off. Is that
No,
right?
they come back. No, they come back just like they never left. So they
Well-
would accrue that because their seniority date is the same. Like, their seniority date would still be, 2002. It's still 2002. So it's that.
Paul, does that say that in the master agreement?
Yes, what we use is for RIF is we use what we call in PeopleSoft is the company seniority date. So it is the higher date within the classification for which when they moved into that slot.
Okay.
So for example, if they were hired originally as a substitute, moved into classified, the company seniority date is the date that is used for seniority in the case of reduction of force.
Okay.
Does that make them eligible to move steps then?
It would, yes, but the only time they're moving a step would be in January. So so you'd only be taking out this period of time of service time, but yes, they would still be on.
So I don't think so if a step was granted, I take this whole year unpaid leave, and a step is granted here in this coming up January. I'm going to get that step when I come back.
Yeah, our step would go in place on January 1. So technically, you know what I mean? Like,
if I come back in next school year, because there's a vaccine and the whole world is back to normal.
Right. That's exactly what's going to happen.
Right. Okay, and that's the way we do it in all other unpaid leaves. And
the thing is that it's specifically addressed in certified for different kinds of leaves, and it's not in classified.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's why I'm sticking on it, because I'm thinking about how we specifically say that in certified, but we can be consistent with other leaves in the classified language. And
so in 15.6, 15.6, it says all previously appointed fringe benefits will be restored to employees upon return from the leave. So I think those ones are the fringe seniority and that type of stuff. The step and that's the intent around the fringe benefits, and that's in 15.6.
I don't think that's a step though. That step isn't a fringe benefit.
yeah, I don't love the word fringe benefit. That's wide open. Who negotiated that? Well done, Williams. Yeah, but okay, so is our current practice when someone's unpaid to get a step or not get a step?
It does say this in the master agreement. If the unpaid leave of absence is 12 weeks or less, the employee shall return to the position they held at the time the unpaid leave of absence commenced and shall be placed on the same step of the salary schedule.
Same step as when it commenced.
Right.
So not the extra step that was awarded while they were gone.
Right.
they go right back. They don't lose any ground, but they just go right back to where they were. And then, yeah, if I'm an employee and I'm working and I get a step and the guy next to me is on an unpaid leave and he gets the step too, that doesn't feel very fair. When he gets back, he comes right back to where he left off. And then any year you work, you get the step if you're there to work. But
I don't think we've never withheld a step from somebody coming back from a leave, ever. Even on our RIFs, on any of those things, we never withheld a step.
Well, doesn't it say specifically in RIF that they get everything? I think that's different.
Yes, RIF specifically says it makes them whole or some specific wording to that intent.
Yeah, I would be curious to talk to maybe one of our benefits people to see, or processing, to see how we're practicing that. But yeah, I would be shocked to know that we've withheld steps from somebody out on an unpaid leave. I've never heard of that.
I'll phone a friend.
Phone a friend. What I'm wondering there, if that 15.2 is around not wanting people to lose steps, that they come back to their, come back to their existing step, is what I'm wondering.
What do you mean now?
So we wouldn't take steps away from somebody. So if somebody goes out on an unpaid leave and they come back, like let's say they're at step 2, we wouldn't put them at step 1. I'm wondering if that's intent is around putting them back to the step that they were on.
Yeah.
But I'm curious to see what processing of benefits have to say.
Oh, I see what you mean. We didn't write that though, Paul, huh? Right? We didn't.
Correct. Yeah. No, that was before us.
Yeah.
We would have clarified it better.
We wrote all the good ones.
Right. Any of the good language, that was us. And so what I'm hearing you say is we're going to get a step this year.
That's why we're doing the new salary schedule, so you can get one.
Just kidding.
Would you guys like to break out into a separate room and have a conversation? We can do that. I'm just checking with Darren, or we can wait and I'll get the answer first and then come back. What would you like to do?
You mean just
If it's
wait?
okay, let's break out for 5 minutes.
Yeah, my team's asking for a break. Yeah.
And what Chad will do is he will put all of the CSEA team into a room. It will not be public. And he'll put all of the district team into a separate room, not public. And you can speak freely. And then he'll set a timer and he'll bring us all back together into the same room. 5 minutes?
Perfect. 5 minutes works.
Okay. Chad, you with us on that?
Yep, I'll do that right now.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, yeah.
Hi, Igor.
Good morning, Cindy. How are you?
Hey,
Sorry I'm
hey.
late.
Oh, that's okay. Hey, they're in a breakout session right now. They just started, so I'm gonna text Chad. Oh, I think he just moved you in there. Perfect. Thank you, Chad.
Hey, Chad, can you give us another 5 minutes? I don't know about you, Paul. We need another few minutes. 5, 10, what do you guys need? 5?
If everybody has time, I hate to push everybody's schedule. Is 10 okay? I was a little bit late due to other.
Yeah. Let's do 10 minutes. We're getting close to the end of our time, but let's do 10 minutes and see where we can get with that. Chad, can you do that for us, please? I accidentally removed myself from my group. That's okay. They'll come back. Chad, do you want to just boot everybody out right now?
Sure.
Okay. I think we're all back. Sorry, my team. I left accidentally. Oh, technology. Paul, how are you guys? Everybody okay there? All right. So when we broke, it was to talk a little bit about the increment, the step, and what should happen with that. I'll go back to sharing the draft document so that we can make any changes on that. Paul, does your team have a recommendation or a suggestion?
So we kind of talked what they kind of agreed to too, and that kind of communication you sent out. And it says as long as they had worked, one semester during the year or whatever, our people have kind of already done that. Because our contract runs or our step happens between the 2 semesters. So we kind of feel like that we kind of should be given the step because our folks have already worked a semester. If that makes sense. They would have worked the semester from the beginning of the calendar year.
And then so to take that forward, so let's say I'm a person who's electing to be on an unpaid leave all this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to be out on an unpaid leave between January and May of the year 2021. And then when I come back, if I come back in the fall of 21, I'll be eligible for a step that happens in January of the year 2022.
Only if
because I will
worked
have worked the fall semester of that calendar year.
Yeah.
And I'll get the step coming this January if it's awarded, because I worked last spring. This is all about the calendar year, the contract year for CSEA. How do people respond to that? What do you think?
Sounds like everybody agrees with me.
Silence is golden.
Well, okay, so are we saying that if they worked last semester, that they'll get the step in January 2021?
Yeah, if they didn't work last semester, then I think they're outside of that, kind of criteria, and they wouldn't receive the step. But if they worked that first, the last semester, then I think that kind of mirrors what Certified's doing as well. Not that we have to mirror that, but.
So everybody would get it unless they were hired in this upcoming fall semester.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, but then they'd be on the leave right away. Yeah. And outside of the leave thing, then they would just follow the current 19.2 language around, the qualification for the step.
When I found a friend, I think our current practice is largely to give steps to people as they return from unpaid leaves. So I think that's consistent, and I think what Paul suggests about working a semester is at least a semester in a contract year in order to receive the subsequent step is something that we could continue to implement. I'm not sure if we.
I think that probably helps staff and keep wages competitive and some things too for employees and for the employer.
So I know we're close to the end of our time. Can people stay for another 10, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think we're really close to getting this wrapped up.
I think the only thing out there is the date, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So let's return to that. I'm not sure that we should, I don't know that we have to put in writing what is currently a practice and is currently in place. Christy, what are your thoughts about adding something to the bullet here or just leaving 19.2 and the current practice stand?
So are you talking about the dates at the first one?
I'm talking about giving a step.
Yeah, so
Yeah. I mean, 19.2 doesn't exactly say what we just talked about. And so we
Right.
need to put it in here specifically.
But what we're saying is that they're going to get the step if they work for a semester,
Yeah.
right? I mean, don't you think we should spell it out?
Yeah. Why don't you, I'll draft something here and will you take us back to the deadline date conversation?
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, should we add something here now for the step? At the
Yeah,
end?
I'm typing something as the last bullet.
Okay, I see that. Okay. So and then we're back up to the first paragraph about the date. So can we agree on August 28th?
So August 28th is what? Is that so help me walk through the calendar.
Okay, so the training starts on the 24th.
Okay, perfect. So then the date would be after the training.
Right.
Or that day the training ends.
Right.
I'm okay with that. And I actually, as we were in break, I kind of thought of that as being a good transition anyways. People have gone through training. That's a good time to make a decision. And then it doesn't, because the other thing you don't want to is to create, a ton of change in the pods either, to where we've already placed people in pods and then now all of a sudden we're scrambling to replace people in pods, and then that's just more change in the pods. So
Right. So they'll start training on the 24th, and we told you need to make your decision by the 28th. So now sit through training and then you can make up your mind.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So can we just change that 17th to 28?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think that also gives the people who are staffing the pods, that gives them approximately 3 or 4 days to be able to say, okay, these are the people that are in and committed, and we can staff those from there. So
right.
Lisa, Nicole, I'm looking at you too.
Well, learning pods begin the following Monday, the 31st.
Right.
So there's
No time. If we don't get a request to go on unpaid leave until the Friday, and we are starting pods on Monday, it's really this is really a gift. It's a gift of time, and we hope that people will. We suspect that many people know. They already know, but we want to give the people who are a little bit on the fence those first few days of training. And we really hope that the minute anybody senses that this is not for me, that they go ahead and apply for the unpaid leave as early as possible to allow us to react to that. But we think it's fair given the really new territory that we're in and how people just don't know what this learning pod thing is all about. And we think it's fair to give them that week to be able to apply for an approved leave of absence. We think it's generous, but
I mean, they can apply before that, and hopefully
yes.
people will. Not everybody wait until the 28th, but that's a message that we can convey to people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that instills some confidence in folks too, to be able to get in this training thing and be like, man, there is some training provided. I'm not actually on an island and those types of things. So hopefully.
The only part that we haven't talked about is what is the minimum number of hour or longevity with us to be able to apply for personal leave. Do So are brand new people that we just hired, are they eligible? What is how long do you have to be here first before they're eligible to apply?
I don't think we have anything currently.
We don't have anything currently because we don't have personal leaves.
Right.
I would propose that if we've hired anybody since March to work for us, they know a bit about the sort of the uncertainty of our world, and I would submit that they're not eligible. I would submit that the people who are eligible worked for us in the past school year. They were with us last year in the 1920 school year or longer. Those are the people that I think, they've been with us for a while and they weren't hired under these circumstances. And so I would propose that we say, in order to be, and this is what we did with certified yesterday, in order to be eligible, you must have worked for us during, like for the entirety of the 1920 school year, or at least since January 1st of 2020. I don't know, team, what do you think is a reasonable amount of time?
I think January 1st, 2020.
So the only, just to be devil's advocate a little bit, the only thing is I look at Igor and Lisa on both your sides around, did you guys bring anybody in as far as drivers and or base and nutrition folks who, you could see that you would want to keep, because here's my other thought is that what's the downside to allowing that person to stay on leave? They're not coming back to a huge seniority. I don't know. Is there a downside to allowing them to stay on a paid leave? Because it would be unpaid. They're not receiving benefits. Is there a downside to that, or is it just we allow them to go into the unpaid leave and then I don't know.
Well, the only thing is, they're barely out of their probationary period.
Right.
So if they started in January and they work till the end of May, then they're not even out of their probationary period if they're a 9 month, because we don't count the summers. So, most of them are still going to be probationary employees. And I guess the downside is just, processing those leaves. And what are they walking away from? Nothing.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm just like, if somebody said, hey, I want to be a bus driver, not to keep picking on bus drivers, but if I said, hey, I want to be a bus driver, and I started in March, Igor invested, 2 or 3 weeks worth of the training program in me, and but I'm just not comfortable doing this pod thing, so I'm going to go on an unpaid leave, and then January, hopefully, or even sooner, maybe keep our fingers crossed, October 1st, we're back to in-person learning and busing's fired back up again. And I'm ready to do what I signed up for, and that was be a bus driver. So I don't know, is that worth the extra, processing and work to do that? Or is that something where we just say, hey, come back to us when we fire back up again, and we'll probably have some more routes, and we can maybe do a quick training program on you. I don't know.
I feel like an approved leave of absence is a benefit. We're holding your place for you. We are not hiring a permanent replacement. We're hiring temporary replacements, which are hard to find, and we're holding your spot, in our organization. And so it is a bit of a benefit. I don't know to whom we want to grant that benefit. I take your point that we invest a lot in training right at the front end. And so maybe we don't want to be short-sighted about it. Maybe anybody who was already an employee is eligible to have an unpaid leave. I wonder about maybe it's people who have made it through their probationary period. Maybe those are the people that we say, you've done a certain amount of good service for us and passed certain standards, and you've made it out of probation. So you would be eligible for this benefit.
So just to counter my original position, The other thought is so that person now who came on in March, and so Igor and I start at the same time. We both start in March. I decide pods aren't for me, so I bail and go on an unpaid leave. And but Igor continues on, and now at the end of the day, we both receive a step in January when I only had to, you know what I mean? So so there is that thought as well.
Well, and I think it's helpful, like health aides or office staff are also eligible for this leave. Is that accurate?
Mhm.
And so when I think about those positions, you know, anybody who is hired, you know, after and I don't know whether we need to stick to January 1st or another date, but I'm just thinking like March 15th, for example, anybody hired after that knew what they were walking into, right? We knew this was a remote setting. We knew we were going to be figuring these things out. So that shouldn't be a surprise that we're in a very different place, as opposed to what we were saying before. You're hired in December. You're thinking you're just going to be the bus driver. You're serving lunches in a normal way. So I don't know if there's a date or anything else, but I do think, you know, this could impact more than just the learning pods, which is where I think we've spent the majority of time focusing.
And of the nutrition staff we've hired, they've been working. So if we hired them throughout the summer, they've actually been working in our summer programs and will be working in learning pods. And then base, we pretty much paused on hiring anybody basically from March forward. We're in the process of hiring right now, but directors know that they're having those conversations about learning pods as a part of being hired, because we don't know what locations we're going to have base in.
Lisa, do you have an opinion about what the eligibility should be?
No, I mean, no, not really, not either way.
Igor, you have an opinion?
I do. My personal opinion is that if they are an employee right now, that they should be allowed to apply for the leave. I don't know how many will actually stick around, because if this is several months, they might be finding other employment. But I just think it's a tough call. We invested a lot of time in these folks and the training. And Matt, I have to just disagree slightly in that, you know, we were all looking to come back in person.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were walking into some level of uncertainty, but you know, we hired folks who thought that they were going to be a bus driver in September or late August. And right now they're just faced with the decision that if we tell them you can't apply for a leave, that they're gone. And I agree that it's a benefit. My personal opinion is that they should at least have the opportunity to apply for that leave. Whether or not they'll take it, that I don't know, because they might be out of work for some time. So.
Sure. And I want to make sure that we are, just to be clear, I was just thinking about the timing, not so much a personal opinion of whether we should extend that to them or not. And certainly the learning pod wasn't a thought back in March or, you know, even June. So definitely things have changed.
I wasn't trying to pick or say anything negative, just throwing out my thought.
Yep. No, it's good. It's good to have the diversity of thinking here. Well, we could take any reference out, and when the language is silent, then that means anybody who's with us, you know, is eligible. I for this employee group, even though it's different than what certified says, I do think the cards are a little different. You know, certified employees are essentially doing their usual work, albeit remotely, or partly remotely, a little bit in person. This group of employees, many of them are doing something completely different. So I think I'm okay if we just don't have an eligibility. Anybody who's currently an employee, if you're with us, we've trained you and we have an investment in you already. Let me see people's thumbs on that. Are you okay with the concept of no bullet about eligibility? Christy's sideways. She can live with it. Okay. All right. Okay, I'm going to take that out of the shared language. We changed the date up top to August 28th. Is there anything else? So look at the entire document. And I'm going to ask you for thumbs on this entire document. Are you okay with this as our letter of agreement for the rest of this school year?
Mila, I only have one other thing, tuition reimbursement. If they take a leave of absence, are they eligible to receive tuition reimbursement? Because I'm going to have people asking that question.
I believe, here's my 2 cents. I think the word benefits in the second bullet includes tuition reimbursement, but what do the rest of you say to that?
And I'm okay with that. I just need to know how to explain it when the phone calls come in.
Paul, what's your interpretation?
I think I agree with you, Mila. If somebody's out on that's a benefit of working for the district, and if they take a paid leave, they're unpaid at that point in time. And do we want people who are out on unpaid leave of absences driving up costs of those costly benefits against the cost of the contract? So, and for those of you that don't know what the cost of the contract is all those benefits as people utilize them, that all counts towards the cost of the contract when we look at doing salary increases and those types of things. So, so I'm hesitant around allowing those folks who are on unpaid leave to continue to rack up that cost of benefit. So,
any other comments, questions about the whole letter of agreement? Okay, so I'm Rob.
I'm sorry.
You. Okay. So I'm going to ask you to show us your thumb, and this is, can we adopt this as our agreement for the 2021 school, the rest of the year? Just waiting. Oh, Tony stepped away. Where's your thumb, Tony? All right. All right. Very good. All right, team. Nice conversation. Good. I think it's a good landing spot. I think next steps include Paul and I drafting a shared communication to the system, or maybe Christy and Paul can work on that. But anyway, we'll draft a shared communication to the system. We'll put out this leave information and let people start to make their choices for some of them who've just been waiting for this.
So the only thing is, just for the benefit of intent, on that, what would that be? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth bullet down, district is not obligated to approve any request for the employee to return to work following the unpaid leave if no position is available. And just so we're on the same page for intent, that is around if the position no longer exists, meaning that we had to eliminate it due to enrollment. Correct.
Do we want to say if the position, does that substantively change the intent there? If the position no longer exists, if the position's no longer available.
Or what if we said, if the position's following the unpaid leave of absence, if the position no longer exists, and in that instance, the current RIF language would be followed. Can we say that?
Yeah.
Or if that is a situation, we will follow current RIF language.
Christy, your thought?
Sorry to throw a wrench in there.
No, glad you caught it. We did talk about Article 999.
I think we just need to say that, we will follow the RIF process, what do we call it in here?
It's reduction in force.
Yeah. So if we will follow the reduction in force language. And yeah.
How's that?
Yeah, that's good.
I like it. I like that better. That gives me a larger thumbs up.
2 thumbs up?
Probably 2.
Does that change anybody's vote? No? Okay. We
Say
good?
in this, put in this event first.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna shout for a second. Hey.
Wordsmith us. Don't leave us with a poorly constructed document.
That's better.
Ms. Riccio.
Yeah, that's good.
And you can always shout orders on your way out, Christy.
I can do anything I want today.
Best last day ever. Paul, any closing words?
Again, I just, want to reiterate and just say thanks for partnering with us during this trying times. I know that some things have been difficult at times, but it's really impressive to see everybody come together and be able to navigate through these situations and create something that I believe, if things go the way I think they will, I think we'll be in remote learning for a bit of time. And this will allow classified folks the opportunity to continue working if they so choose. And yeah, I think it puts us in a good spot moving forward. It's not perfect by any means, but I don't think anybody knows what perfect is right now. So I again, just thank the district for that.
I agree. And like we said at the beginning, we really value our partnership and I appreciate each of you spending a couple of hours on a fine Friday morning together. I really appreciate Christy Riccio on her last day. Have appreciated her for the last 3 years. And so it's a bittersweet day for us here in HR. But I'm not going to end the conference crying. So let's go ahead and adjourn. Thank you all. And we will see you a little later.
Thank you.